During World War II, one of the most terrifying experiences for the Allies was sailing across the Atlantic. Beneath the seemingly calm waters of the ocean lurked the fearsome German submarines, always ready to hunt down enemy ships. Any ship that was too confident and did not take precautions could, at any moment, be hit by a torpedo, causing irreparable damage and sinking. The crew was scattered in the middle of the Atlantic, surrounded by the wreckage of their ship and the corpses of their comrades, waiting to be rescued or for the ocean to become their grave. Meanwhile, the submersible returned to the depths, like a ghost, waiting for its next victim. But, what was life like inside a German submarine? In the next few minutes we will tell you everything about the daily routine of its crew. But first, if you would like to compare what life was like in a submarine at that time to today's, then don't miss this other MilitaryMight video, where we explain in detail how the Navy lives inside these underwater beasts today and how they survive being locked underwater for almost 90 days, without sun, without family, and all living together. The differences are really noticeable, since today life is much more comfortable for the crew, but there are things that have not changed yet and that would be unbearable for many. Don't miss it! Visit the MilitaryMight channel. Now yes, back to our question. Are you ready? Let's get started. The Germans called their submarines U-boot, which were the key weapon in the Battle of the Atlantic. This conflict began together with the Second World War, and involved the naval blockade of England by the Third Reich as a way of compromising its economy. Allied ships that dared to cross the ocean waters, whether for military or commercial purposes, risked being intercepted by submersibles, which patrolled them in groups nicknamed packs. Throughout the war, the Nazi Empire built more than 1,000 units. And British Prime Minister Winston Churchill once said, "The only thing that really scared me during the war was the danger of submarines." In general, submersibles spent most of their time on the surface, running on diesel engines, because they could thus reach a higher navigation speed. They only dived when they wanted to remain unnoticed, either to avoid detection by the enemy, or to carry out a surprise torpedo attack during the day. For a long time, German submarines were real predators, because sonar was not yet very developed, and the tactic of providing air cover for Allied ships had not yet been implemented. For the crew of a submarine, the daily routine could very easily turn into a nightmare, due to the deplorable living conditions. Each patrol mission meant that they would be in the ocean for a period of time ranging from 3 weeks to 6 months. In total, there were between 50 and 60 crew members, divided into 2 groups with specific tasks: the sailors and the specialists. The former were in charge of carrying out general maintenance and cleaning tasks, operating the weapons, acting as lookouts on the upper deck of the submersible, and loading the torpedoes so that they were ready to fire. The day was divided into 3 8-hour shifts, one for work, one for miscellaneous activities, and one for sleeping. Instead, the specialists were in command of the controls, the radios, and the most delicate technical equipment, and their routine was organized in 3 shifts of 4 hours in the day and 1 shift of 6 hours at night. The rest of the time, they were allowed to rest. As for the commander, Hans-Dieter Heinecke, a former soldier in command of a submarine, he remembers his role as follows: he is the brain and the eyes of the entire group. He is the one who bears all the responsibility and the weight of the mission, decisions, and actions. He is the only person who is aware of everything that is happening. The others blindly obey, fulfilling small and specific tasks, while the commander leads them. What made the submarine crew most uncomfortable was the hygienic conditions while on board. While patrolling the waters, they were not allowed to bathe, shave, and wash their clothes, and even changes of clothes were severely limited. This meant that men could go almost half a year without access to a shower. Since they were under the ocean and had to go out to the surface bridge from time to time to check the horizon, the salty water stuck to their skin. The only way to remove the salt was using a special soap provided by the officers, although the crew members complained that this detergent left the skin stained by a layer of greasy foam. On the other hand, the interior of the submersible was plagued by unpleasant odors. The men lived in an extremely small space, and there were not enough bunk beds to accommodate them all. In those circumstances, privacy ceased to exist. For this reason, they had to take turns sharing beds, especially at the beginning of a trip, when provisions were plentiful and it was necessary to occupy part of the bedroom to store them. The same happened with the bathrooms. Although there were two, one of them served as a pantry, and since food was kept there, using it was forbidden. The submersible's only toilet was shared by more than 50 people, so fights and arguments over its use were frequent. The waste was emptied via a hand pump that dumped it into the ocean, albeit making a lot of noise. For this reason, when the submarine was lying in wait for an enemy ship, the crew members were forbidden to go to the bathroom, for fear that the sound would alert the prey or that debris floating in the waters would give away their position. To camouflage the stench coming from the toilet and from the bodies of men without bathing, they had a deodorant that barely worked. Food was one of the few things the crew was happy about, as it was the best part of the trip. At the beginning of a mission, the German Navy authorities assigned each submarine a generous amount of provisions. They had sausages, bread, fresh vegetables, fruit, and beef, which were stocked in every available corner of the confined space. Meat, for example, was hung on hooks in the submersible's pipes. A fundamental part of the provisions were oranges and lemons, because, being foods rich in vitamin C, they were necessary so that the men did not get sick with scurvy, typical of sailors. Each crew member was assigned half a bucket of fresh water per day and not a drop more, since it was the resource that the officers took most care of. In any case, the submarines had machinery to distill seawater and make it suitable for human consumption. After several months crossing the ocean, with no other company than the water, the fish, and the few comrades, it was normal for the trip to have a negative psychological effect on a man. Moments of action were few and far between, and the overwhelming majority of the mission consisted of a dull, monotonous routine that didn't vary in the slightest. Therefore, it was essential to keep the morale of the troops high, and to organize different activities to keep them relaxed and with a clear mind, and then concentrate on attacking the enemies. The crew members used to listen to music on a record player and sing loudly, causing laughter when the melody was heard more out of tune. They also organized line competitions, a particular game where all the men had to make a statement, and the rest had to guess if it was true or false. Life aboard a German submersible, as we see, was anything but easy. And it was an experience that changed a soldier's life forever. We have reached the end of the video and we want to ask you, would you like to travel in a World War II submarine? Leave us your answer in the comment box below and don't forget to subscribe to our channel to learn about many more military events that left their mark on history.